They have been married for over 60 years. They met after they finished high school, and they were married a few years later at the local church. They had 7 children in 10 years. They clearly listened to the Lord in the book of Genesis when he said, "Be fertile and multiply." He worked at the business. She worked at home raising the children. They sacrificed so that all their children had the opportunity to attend Catholic schools and colleges. Now, I've been told that in marriage, it works like this, that a couple learns how to push each other's buttons. Am I right? They understood each other's vulnerable humanness. For instance, there was a time when he got home from work and complained that dinner was not ready when he arrived. And he made the mistake of asking the mother of his 7 children, "How is it that you don't have dinner ready when I arrive home? After all, you don't have to work all day." He made that mistake once in 60 years. She had learned that if she just didn't want to deal with him some evening after dinner, she knew exactly how to get rid of him, how to get him focused on something else. And she still knows how to do it. All she has to do, if she doesn't want to have to deal with him some evening, all she has to do is to mention one politician by name, and he is done for the night. He's then going to be on a computer. He's going to be in another room, but he's not going to give her a hard time. I won't tell you who that politician is. After 60 years of marriage, I would have just assumed that this couple has had every fight that you could have. After 60 years, I would have assumed that they had to forgive everything, every mistake that could be made. And I would have assumed after 60 years that they have figured out every possible way to say, "I love you." But one night, I was at dinner with them and some friends and members of their family. And I asked them to tell me again the story of how they met. They had told it to me once before, but I had forgotten some of the details. And so they started to tell me the story. And I just loved that she would say something, and then he would say, "You're wrong, it happened this way." And then he would say something, and she would say something back, but he couldn't hear her because her hearing aids were not working. And it was a beautiful, romantic tale. And at one point, in the telling of the story of how they met and how they fell in love, he leaned over and he whispered something in her ear. And curiosity got the best of me. So I leaned over to her and I asked, "What did he just say to you?" And she said, "You will never find out." Then she said to me, "Let's just put it this way. After 60 years, that man can still surprise me." After 60 years, that man can still surprise me. Friends, if we are paying attention, the people that we love always have the capacity to surprise us. Just when we think that we know everything there is to know about them, something happens and we discover something new about the person that we love. The people we love always have the capacity to surprise us. And so can God. In today's gospel, Jesus uses a brief parable about a wedding to tell us that God who loves us is always capable of surprising us. Like the servants awaiting the master's return after the wedding in today's gospel. You and I need to cultivate a sense of attentiveness to how God is drawing near to us in our own lives. We might be surprised by the timing of God's arrival and the nature of his action in our lives. If you are listening to today's second reading from the letter to the Hebrews, we hear about Abraham and Sarah, the classic examples of people who had real faith in God, and they knew that God could always surprise them. The letter to the Hebrews says, faith is the realization of what's hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Sarah and Abraham were people of faith, but notice how their faith is described in the scriptures. When God asked Abraham to leave home, Abraham, according to the scriptures, is now over 70 years old, and he's settled. He's happy where he is. And then God says to him, now get up and leave everything that's familiar, and I'm going to lead you to a promised land. I'm not going to tell you where it is. I'm not going to tell you how to get there. And Abraham says, yes, when do we leave? I'm ready. When do we make this journey together? Abraham says yes, even though he has no idea where this promised land is. And when God surprises this elderly couple, Abraham and Sarah, by telling them that they are going to have a child, they both believed, even though they couldn't figure out how this pregnancy would be possible. God is constantly surprising Sarah and Abraham, constantly asking them to believe that good things could happen, even though they can't see how it's going to work out. That still leaves the question, how did Sarah and Abraham trust and believe, even when they are being surprised by God? Well, one thing we know from the scriptures about Sarah and Abraham is this: they loved the Lord, and they knew that the Lord loved them. And because of that relationship of love, they believe God when God makes surprising promises. In fact, they are willing to change their daily lives based solely on God's surprising promise. Friends, love is the only thing strong enough to overcome our fears and overcome our questions. And so in today's gospel, when Jesus asks us to be prepared, perhaps what he's asking us to do is to simply love God so much and be aware of how much God loves us, so that when God surprises us, we are going to be able to trust. We'll be able to say, Lord, I have no idea where this is headed. I have no idea where you are taking me. I have no idea how this is going to work out. But I know that you love me, that you're not going to let me down. Be prepared means to fall in love with Christ. God is in every surprise. God is in every unexpected thing in life, even the hard and difficult things that come our way. And as people of faith, we don't have to panic when life throws the unexpected at us. We don't have to panic when your son tells you that he has joined the army and is going overseas. When your daughter tells you that she is pregnant. When your father tells you that he has cancer. In those moments, the Christ who loves you is there, even though you can't see him. Or when your job is suddenly taken away. When your spouse announces that they love someone else. When you face the anniversary of the death of your parent or your child or your spouse. In those moments, the Christ who loves you is there, even if you can't see him. Or when your finances causes you to lose sleep, when you're struggling how to forgive the one who unexpectedly hurt you, when you have fears about what's going on in our world. The Christ who loves you is there, even if you can't see him. When a young man feels called to leave his career path to go off to the seminary, when a young woman feels called to leave her career path to join the Peace Corps, when you feel called to change your priorities so that you can more freely serve your neighbor, the Christ who loves you is there, even if you can't see him. When you fall in love, when you hold your child for the first time, when you experience passion and beauty and love, the Christ who loves you is there, even if his face is hidden beneath the surface. Or when you unexpectedly feel called to deeper faith, or stronger prayer, or more active service to others, when you feel called to break down barriers or to open up doors so that you can actually encounter the Christ who is in the neighbor, Christ is there. I think Christ is going to keep surprising us until we die, and even after that. But that's not an excuse for us as God's people to just sit back and wait for him to do something. In the meantime, we are called to get ready, to be prepared, to pray and study, to learn and worship together in the community of the church, to serve our brothers and sisters who may be in need. The mystery of Christ's love is so intense that the most important thing that I can do in return is to fall in love with him. That's how I will be prepared to trust him, even in those moments that I can't see him. And who knows, maybe I won't have to blush the next time that he whispers in my ear.